Welcome back to the Barrel Talk podcast. We are back with another episode of Let's Talk About It. This is going to be a part 2 to one trade for every single Eastern Conference team, this offseason video. So this episode, we're going to be doing the Western Conference, having one trade for every team in the Western Conference except for the Dallas Mavericks, kind of like I had the Boston Celtics on the Eastern Conference. The Dallas Mavericks, I didn't really have a trade for because they're in the NBA Finals, obviously. So we're going to be breaking down the other teams in the Western Conference, giving them one trade idea to think about going into this offseason. But before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like. Helps out the channel a ton. If you're an audio listener, make sure you give the podcast a 5-star. And with this, it's going to be weird because we have visual on YouTube, but if you're still an audio listener, I'll be repeating out the trades. It shouldn't be too hard to follow along. But without further ado, we can get right into Portland Trailblazers. Now, when you're looking at this team, very interesting offseason. I feel like they have a lot of moving parts that could be off this roster, just kind of going into a new era in Portland. But for this one, I have all the trades right here in my notes. Looking at this, for Portland, they are kind of in the realm where I think they need to just keep on adding on draft capital, keep on adding guys to the roster that may be able to stick next to a Scoot Henderson, a Shaedon Sharpe, even possibly DeAndre Ayton, who has 2 years left on his contract. They have Jeremy Grant, who could possibly be flipped this offseason. Even Robert Williams, I feel like, could possibly be flipped this offseason. But for this trade right here, we're kind of keeping it simple. Something I really thought they could have done at the deadline, which hindsight now, looking on it, probably could have helped them with all the injuries that they did end up having. But with this one, Malcolm Brogdon, 1 year left on his contract, $22.5 million. You're going to be sending that to the New York Knicks. And in exchange, you're going to get Bogdanovich, who is an expiring contract, who is somebody that you could later down the line flip at next year's trade deadline. And you're also going to be adding on the 25th overall pick in this year's draft. Feel like the Knicks are throwing in that pick because Bojan is older for sure, 4 years older, coming off of a foot injury. You're really just eating up the rest of his contract or possibly trying to flip him depending on his play. And you're bringing in, for the Knicks perspective, you're bringing in Malcolm Brogdon, who is when you look at it on the surface, you might think, oh, that's a loaded guard room. But when you're really looking at the Knicks and what they struggled with, they didn't really have anything coming off the bench that was like a real playmaker, somebody that could set guys up. I know Deuce McBride was coming off the bench and showed really good flashes in the playoffs, but looking at him, I feel like he's so much better suited to be off the ball. And if you're looking at this Knicks team fully healthy, off that bench, it's going to be Deuce McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart. None of those guys really scream playmaker from me personally. But with Malcolm Brogdon, somebody who has proven to be a playmaker, proven to be able to play off the ball as well. So if you want to run a lineup where you have Jalen Brunson and Malcolm Brogdon on the court together, he is suited to play off ball. He can start. He's a sixth man. He can do really everything at the guard position. And he's a taller, bigger guard who can defend. I feel like he is a perfect Tibbs guy. And I feel like that's what the Knicks are trending towards. There's a lot of speculation of who the Knicks should trade for this offseason. I feel like they're not trading for anybody that doesn't fit what they already have going. They're not going to change what they have going for one specific player. Malcolm Brogdon is a perfect guy that can come off the bench for them and really make it easier on the bench unit, setting up guys like DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, and Deuce McBride. But if you're Portland from this perspective, and I really thought that the Knicks were going to go out here and do this at the deadline, but they didn't. So if you're really looking at Bogdanovich, if you're the Blazers, you're eating up the last year of that contract for essentially just a first-round draft pick addition that you were going to lose Brogdon for anyways. So with that 25th overall pick, I mean, the Blazers could have a world of different options at that pick depending on what they do with their other first-round draft picks as well. They have 7 and 14 in this draft as well. So that's what I have for the Portland Trailblazers. Bogdanovich and 25 going to the Portland Trailblazers for Malcolm Brogdon going to the New York Knicks. Next team we have is San Antonio Spurs. Looking at this, they're in a world where they can really look to compete next season for at least possibly a play-in playoff spot, depending on the growth and development of Victor Wembanyama and who they add around him this offseason. But when I'm looking at this team, I'm looking at the picks, so they have 4 and 8. But I just feel like when you're looking at this roster, it's still so young. To where I don't really think anybody. There's a lot of good guys obviously in that top 10, but I don't think there's a lot of number 2 caliber guys, right? You see Devin Vassell here, who they extended, who's still just 23 years old. He showed flashes last year. Still waiting to see his development. But I'm looking at, I think the Spurs with their certain draft situation and how many picks they do have leading into the future that aren't theirs, I think this is a play where they can really be going into this offseason looking to be aggressive. I have them trying to go after a Cade Cunningham, somebody who I've kind of explained in the past videos, like he's up for an extension. And if I'm Detroit, I'm like, I haven't seen, not saying Cade Cunningham's the problem whatsoever, but I haven't seen anything from this team and this regime really since we've drafted Cade Cunningham. I know he's had that injured year and everything, but like I haven't seen anything that warrants me like extending Cade Cunningham and thinking anything is going to grow and improve out of this roster, because I've seen different people kind of say they like this roster. I don't really like this Pistons roster. I think Ivy, Cade, and Asar, I don't really know if that is going to work. Asar had his injury problems last year. I think we still got to see what we see from him with this roster. I like Duren. I like Isaiah Stewart, but it's just like, what are you adding to this team, right? Like, you have all this cap space, you have the 5th overall pick, and you were the historically worst team damn near in all of the history of the NBA last year. So, like, looking at that, it's just like, you're going to have a bunch of cap space, but it's like, who are you bringing? Does Tobias Harris move the needle enough for you to possibly jump from that worst 15 spot to the plan? I don't know. I kind of explained it in part 1 where I did the Eastern Conference side of things. But in this, I have the Spurs taking a home run swing to try to go get Cade Cunningham. They have the assets to do it that aren't even their assets. So in this one, have them giving up the 4th overall pick, have them keeping number 8. I have them giving up Keldon Johnson, and then I have them also giving up 2025 first from Atlanta with no protections on it, 2026 swap with Atlanta, and then the Spurs 2026 first unprotected right there. So you're getting, in a sense, 4K Cunningham, which the Spurs will probably have no problem with extending and creating a big 3 of Cade, Devin Vassell, Wemby. And then you still have the 8th overall pick, and you still have other draft capital that isn't yours. If I'm the Spurs, why not take a home run swing, give up your 4th overall pick for somebody like Cade Cunningham that's already kind of ready in his career to win and be on a good situation and a good team coached by Greg Popovich? You're giving up Keldon Johnson, who kind of seems like the odd man out already, the 4th overall pick, Atlanta's 1st round pick for next year. That's a loaded draft class that has no protections on it. You're giving them a 2026 first rounder swap with Atlanta, and then you're giving them 2026 first round pick unprotected of your own. So in this, you're only giving up 2 first round picks of your own. And when you look at from the Spurs' point of view, like, you have the 8th overall pick, you have 2 seconds, you have Charlotte's protected 1 through 14. That's probably going to go to them. You have still your 2025 first round pick next year. You have 2025 Chicago's pick. You have a 2nd from Chicago. Like, you have Pelicans pick down here. Multiple swaps down here. Like, you're not short on draft capital. Like, look at all these picks in 2028, 2029, like, they have a boatload of draft capital and draft assets to where, like, this in position to trade for a guy like Cade Cunningham, which I think is definitely realistic this offseason. I think it's a home run swing for the Spurs, and I think they have the assets and capital to do it without hindering themselves too much. Now going on to Memphis Grizzlies. Now looking at this Memphis Grizzlies team, obviously ready to compete, had an injury-riddled year, but kind of like what I had for the Bulls side of things, is I do have them trading with the Bulls again, just for different aspects and different people from the Memphis Grizzlies point of view, because in the Bulls one I had them, I actually can pull it up right here. In the Bulls trade, I had them getting Zaire Williamson, the 9th pick, 39th pick for Alex Caruso, Andre Drummond, and Torrey Craig. But for the Memphis Grizzlies side of things, I think it would be a different kind of package. So I have the Bulls and the Grizzlies trading with each other. DeMar DeRozan in a sign-and trade. When I look at this Grizzlies team, I like Desmond Bane and Triple J. But I don't think alongside of John Morant they are, in terms of winning a championship, I don't know if they're good enough to be the number 2 guy, especially on a Grizzlies team that can struggle offensively at times. I think adding a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who has definitely improved his playmaking ability in Chicago throughout the past couple of years, to really be able to be kind of a closer late game in some cases for this team. I think DeMar DeRozan is a great veteran to have for this Grizzlies team. Somebody that you could really, if you're the Memphis Grizzlies, give like a 2-year extension to at his age, at 34 years old, in a sign-and trade, I think could be beneficial. You're also adding one of the best perimeter defenders in all of basketball in Alex Caruso to kind of come off your bench, and I feel like that is great value. And you're going to be giving the Chicago Bulls Luke Kennard, Zaire Williams, G.G. Jackson, who had great flashes last year and still only 19 years old. Somebody that, where the Bulls are kind of lacking at that 4 spot, don't know what they're doing Patrick Williams yet, can really grow and develop G.G. Jackson next to a Kobe White. You're giving them the 9th overall pick. And this first-round pick swap right here between Phoenix, Orlando, and Washington, you're giving up that for DeMar DeRozan and Alex Caruso. If you're the Bulls from this side of things, you're getting more spacing and shooting, something I think that the Bulls desperately need in terms of the development of Kobe White. And a G.G. Jackson. You're adding Zaire Williams, who's another project piece who's still super, super young, who you could possibly grow on. Now you're having another first-round pick. You have 9 and 11 now in the draft, and you're adding a first-rounder in 2026, which could always end up being valuable. So looking at this, if you're the Memphis Grizzlies, you're adding DeMar DeRozan, who you need to vet in that locker room. Same with Alex Caruso, 2 guys that can help you go deep into the playoffs right now and win a championship possibly. So now looking at Utah Jazz, they're in another situation where they have a lot of assets that could be sold. I feel like this is kind of the common theme with the Utah Jazz. Looking at them, I have them trading with the Sacramento Kings. I think the Kings are due for a big-time move this offseason. I think they need it. I think they need somebody with some scoring and spacing. I have them trading for Harrison Barnes, 45, and a 2027 first-round pick from Sacramento, unprotected. And they're sending over Lauri Markkanen. So yeah, the Kings are going to have to extend Lauri Markkanen, but if I'm the Jazz from their point of view, why would I roll the ball on this? If you aren't going to extend Lauri Markkanen this offseason, you might as well try to trade him and get the most value for him. You're getting Harrison Barnes, who could easily be flipped at the next year's trade deadline or be routed to a third team. You get the 13th overall pick, so now you have 10 and 13. You get another second-round pick, and you're getting a 2027 first-round pick unprotected. So that could possibly be valuable depending on what the Kings are at that current time. But if you're the Kings, this is a no-brainer. Then you're going to need the extra scoring because you're probably going to lose Malik Monk in free agency. So you're going to probably have De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Keegan Murray, Lauri Markkanen, and Sabonis. I feel like that is a great starting 5 that has a lot of spacing involved in it. I mean, you have 3 knockdown shooters in Lauri, Keegan, and Kevin Huerter next to a De'Aaron Fox, who is improving as a 3-point shooter as well. All around a Sabonis, who's an offensive hub. The only part about the Kings is like looking at this bench, they're going to have to address that. But in this trade, if you're the Utah Jazz, I mean, look at this draft capital you have now. You have 10, 13, and 29, all first-round picks. You have 2 second-round picks. You're adding 2027 first-round pick to already this haul of first-round picks you have in 2027. So I just think it's a no-brainer, especially moving a guy like Lauri Markkanen, who I think the Kings would be interested in extending just because you're Sacramento, you're not that big of a market. I feel like locking up somebody like Lauri Markkanen to create a new big 3, big 4 in the sense of Fox, Murray, Markkanen, and Sabonis would be valuable. And you kind of get him on this $18 million a year contract this year that makes it a lot easier for you to trade for him. But for the Jazz, I think that's a no-brainer. I mean, you're not in a position to where you should be looking to add. You should be looking to sell off assets to try to find your franchise guy, because I don't think they have that yet. I think they can suit themselves up perfectly to get assets for when they do find that guy to then build a team around him, if that makes sense. Next team, Houston Rockets. Now, this one, kind of a cop-out. I have them doing the same exact trade with the Brooklyn Nets. I think these 2 teams have been linked, and I think a trade is bound to happen between these 2 teams. It's the same trade I had for the Eastern Conference side of things for the Brooklyn Nets. I just think it makes sense. For the sake of things, it was going to be Jalen Green, 3rd overall pick, 44th overall pick, 2025 first rounder right here from the Nets, giving that back to Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges, Dennis Schroeder. Houston Rockets and the Brooklyn Nets are on 2 different trajectories as a team. I feel like from the Nets side of things, you might not be getting all your picks back, but you're getting a young piece that has shown great flashes, especially this year in Jalen Green. You're getting the 3rd overall pick to pair him up with a Topic or whatever you want to go there. 44th overall pick out of Golden State. And you're getting your 2025 pick back from the Houston Rockets. We're in a loaded draft next year. Rockets, no brainer. You're adding Mikal Bridges to this team that is ready to compete in the playoffs, and Dennis Schroeder, who can be a great backup point guard next to a Fred VanVleet that can kind of give you a lot of the same things, especially defensively. I think both of these guys are really, really fitting to what Ime Udoka wants to do with the Houston Rockets. And if you're the Rockets, you're running VanVleet, Mikal, Dillon Brooks, Jabari, Sengun, and off your bench, you're going to probably have like Cam Whitmore, Dennis Schroeder in this case, Atari Eason. God, I can't even think of who else. They have so many people on their bench, so many young guys. Like Steven Adams is still there. Amen Thompson is still there. Jayshawn Tate's still there. Like, their bench is super, super young. And I really think Steven Adams is a great backup to have next to Sengun. That gives you a completely different style of play. And then, like, I feel like with their bench being so young, I feel like it's so much out of Fred VanVleet to kind of, like, be the only veteran point guard on this team. And I really don't see, like, they don't even have a draft pick this year if they do this trade. So, like, looking at that, adding a Dennis Schroeder could be very, very valuable, a veteran guard that can kind of run that second unit, because I feel like there's a lot of just no leadership off that bench yet for Houston. And I feel like adding somebody like Dennis Schroeder could be very valuable to them. But for this trade, just for my audio listeners to repeat it, Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder are going to the Houston Rockets. The Brooklyn Nets are getting Jalen Green, number 3, number 44, and a 2025 first-round pick that Brooklyn is getting back of their own. So next team we're going to go to is Golden State Warriors. Another interesting team that is kind of tough to trade for just because their contracts are kind of weird in a sense. And like from like a Warriors fan's perspective, I always hear stuff about how like Steve Kerr will come out and say we want to bring Chris Paul back, like we want to do this and that. But it's just like the writing's on the wall. Like Chris Paul at 39, almost 40 years old, on a non-guaranteed $30 million contract, like what does that... He helps nothing that you need, especially with the development of like Brandon Przemski, who can be that bench guard and that bench facilitator that can do a little bit of everything. That kind of is already giving you more already than what Chris Paul is. I know Chris Paul, like IQ-wise, is a basketball savant for this team, but like at some point, like Chris Paul was like not even able to really play a whole lot of minutes for this Warriors team, as a team that kind of needs to go get things that can help them right now. So I picked the trade for a guy that I think the Warriors are in a point now where if they want to maximize the rest of Steph Curry, they need another scoring punch, they need a size, and they need defense. And I have them all addressing that in this trade. And if I'm the Bulls, it's interesting to see, like, let me know in the comments if this is too much or too little. But I think you're giving the Bulls a cop-out, so I didn't really include too much in this trade because of Zach LaVine's value might not be the highest right now. So looking at this, I have the Warriors going and getting their offensive punch shot creator next to Steph Curry and Zach LaVine. I have them getting Alex Caruso, and I have them getting Andre Drummond. This would have to be a sign and trade, but I think you can get Andre Drummond on a pretty solid contract long term because I think he can still be a great different kind of switch up for what the Warriors need. The Warriors struggle to rebound the basketball sometimes, especially at that 5 spot. And I feel like Andre Drummond can still prove he is a great glass and rim protector. Alex Caruso, who is somebody who has been on the Warriors' radar for like past couple of years now. Steve Kerr said that he has always liked Alex Caruso and wanted to get Alex Caruso on the Warriors. Zach LaVine, you're getting him to be that offensive punch next to Steph Curry, which this team struggles out of offense outside of Steph Curry. And I feel like in this system, with the ability that Zach LaVine does have to shoot the basketball and to get downhill, I feel like him being able to develop his game and move more off the ball can open up everything for him. And obviously playing with somebody like a Steph Curry can open up the world for somebody like Zach LaVine, who has really all the talent offensively. It's the defense that you have question marks from, but then you're bringing in Alex Caruso, pairing him up with like a Draymond Green defensively could be scary things, because I don't really think the Warriors have that like point of attack defender at this point, especially on the perimeter. I know Draymond Green is still a great defender, but he's more suited now, I feel like, in his career dealing with forwards and bigs now compared to like being able to switch onto like 2s and 1s. I feel like Alex Caruso can be that perfect point of attack defender for you. But in terms of what the Warriors are giving up, Andrew Wiggins, make the contracts work, and I feel like depending on what they do with the DeMar DeRozan, Andrew Wiggins could be valuable for this Chicago Bulls team in terms of the development of their young guys that they do have. Looking at this, Chris Paul, he's on a non-guaranteed contract, so his contract can be wiped away by the Bulls in terms of like kind of a buyout. It's kind of confusing how they worded it when I did look up the like specifics of it. So it's like a non-guaranteed contract, so they could just get rid of him if they want to, if they're Chicago. But if they're the Warriors, like the contract could be valuable in terms of working something like this out in a trade. So looking at this, and if you're like the Bulls perspective and like you're say Chris Paul's on your team for a year, I think Chris Paul is phenomenal for the development of a Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu, and whoever they snag in the draft. I think Chris Paul is a perfect veteran leader. I feel like this is a team that is perfectly suited to have a Chris Paul off their bench because of how young the guards are in this team, especially even if you bring Alonzo Ball back and he's healthy. Chris Paul could really, mentality-wise, push this Bulls team into a new, different direction just off of him being in the locker room alone. I also have Moses Moody, somebody who can kind of replace those Alex Caruso minutes at the 2, just super a lot younger, and who can get more opportunity with the Chicago Bulls. And in this one, I have them sending a 2026 first-round pick of their own. So this is the trade right here. Zach LaVine, Alex Caruso, Andre Drummond going to the Golden State Warriors for Chris Paul, Andrew Wiggins, Moses Moody, and a 2026 first-round pick. I did think, so I try to look at these trades and I'm like, does it make sense for both sides? And I feel like if you're looking at this from the Bulls' perspective with Zach LaVine being hurt all of last year, it kind of hurt his value. And he's on a super big contract coming off of an injury. I think it's the risk the Warriors are willing to take, looking at the upside and ability of Zach LaVine has with pairing him next to a Steph Curry. And then if you're the Bulls, I mean, you're really getting a 2026 first-round pick. You're getting a Moses Moody, who I feel like is still having great sparks of potential. I feel like he fits really well with the Chicago Bulls team. And you're getting Andrew Wiggins, who can kind of fill that void of a DeMar DeRozan. And I feel like he also fits with what they want to do. So I see Alex Caruso and how his value is. Maybe you probably could get, like, they're looking in the Steph Curry era. Maybe you can try to get this 2028 first-round pick unprotected if it works. Like, maybe you could try to get that 2028 unprotected pick right here added to this from the Warriors side of things if you don't feel like it's enough for these three guys right here, who I think all help the Warriors out right now. So looking at that, it's really going to be interesting to see what they do this offseason with the Warriors. I feel like it's one of the more important offseasons for their future in like quite some time. So that's for the Golden State Warriors. Now we're going to the Sacramento Kings. They're doing a different route. The only other trade I had the Kings involved in was getting Lauri Markkanen, and that was from the Jazz point of view. I have them getting in the market for Mikal Bridges. I think his defense is something that they could desperately need. Him and Keegan Murray defensively, if Keegan Murray continues to grow on the defensive side of the ball, could be giving them kind of a 2 point of attack defenders that they could really use on the Sacramento Kings team that we know can score. We know they can get up and down, but defensively putting Mikal Bridges with Keegan Murray and Keon Ellis, who has really good defensive potential. Same with Davion Mitchell, who is already a great defensive player on his own. But looking at this, you're sending Harrison Barnes, 13, 45, 2027 first rounder, 2029 first rounder, both unprotected for Mikal Bridges. So you're getting, if you're from Brooklyn's point of view, who doesn't have a first rounder or any you could draft capital this year, you give them 2 picks, one in the first, one in the second. Harrison Barnes, who could easily be flipped, like I said, kind of for the Utah Jazz, you're giving him 2 first-round picks unprotected for the future to kind of bolster up that draft capital down the line for them. And if you're the Kings, you're adding a Mikal Bridges, who can be that number 2 on some nights, and even in the 3, depending on what night you get from Sabonis, next to a De'Aaron Fox, Sabonis, Mikal, Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, Davion Mitchell, Keon Ellis. Like, they have a lot going on in Sacramento. I think they definitely need to look in this offseason to be aggressive, and that's what I have them doing here. Next team, LA Lakers. I really cooked for the Lakers fans. I really did. I feel like I really cooked for the Lakers fans. I have them talking to the Nets. No, this is not a Mikal Bridges trade. I feel like I've kind of used Mikal Bridges a lot throughout these 2 videos, but like, he's the hot name on the market. With his contract, it's so easy to get him from one place to another, and he fits on every single team in the league, it seems like. So looking at the Lakers, I don't have them getting Mikal Bridges, but I have them getting something, 3 guys I think that Lakers fans would love to be on their team. So for this one, have the Lakers, it's a big package. So the Lakers are getting Cam Johnson, Dennis Schroeder, who they never should have let go anyways, who should have signed that extension, and Dorian Finney-Smith, 3 guys that I know are going to fit next to Bron and AD. You're giving up D'Angelo Russell, who has a player option. Maybe he takes that player option knowing he's going to a place like Brooklyn where he kind of had the best years of his career. D'Angelo Russell, Gabe Vincent, you're bringing in Dennis Schroeder to replace those minutes. Jared Vanderbilt, who's already been on the market to be shopped. Jalen Hood-Schifino, Christian Wood, the 17th overall pick, and a 2029 first unprotected. This is what the trade looks like. So, final, I'll just say for my audio listeners, Cameron Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dennis Schroeder are going to the Lakers. The Nets are getting D'Angelo Russell, Gabe Vincent, Jared Vanderbilt, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Christian Wood, 17th overall pick, and a 2029 first-round pick from the Lakers unprotected. If you're the Lakers' point of view, home run, you get spacing and shooting in Cam Johnson, who's on a long-term contract, who just got extended for the Lakers. He fits perfectly next to Bron and AD, and I feel like the Lakers need somebody like him, an actual sniper from deep. Dorian Finney-Smith, who's 3-and-D, somebody else who can shoot the 3 ball, give you space, and give you great defense on the other end. I really like him next to, and I think they should bring back Taurean Prince, like him and Rui, kind of like that 4 tandem. You have Cam Johnson also in there as well. They can all play the 3 and the 4. Then you pairing him up with Bron. Then you have Dennis Schroeder, who is somebody who I feel like was great with the Lakers and gives them a guard that fits next to LeBron James, and he's a better defender and offensive player than a Gabe Vincent, and you pair him up in the backcourt with an Austin Reeves. I feel like that could be great for them. And if you're the Lakers, you're looking at this, you still have some things to address. I think you could try to go out into the market and try to sign a backup big, because I don't have them getting that in this trade. And I think that's something they need to address. Hopefully they could possibly address it in the draft. But with the second round pick right here, because on this, there's really nobody else. Like, you're not getting Nick Claxton, no one Ben Simmons. Like, they don't really have any other bigs that they can give you. So I think them going out in the second and possibly getting an NBA-ready big could show value for them. But with this, I mean, you're adding depth. I mean, this gives you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You bring back Taurean Prince, 8. Cam Reddish, don't know what you're doing with him, 9. Like, you're giving the Lakers a solid 7 to 8 man rotation for sure. And depending on what they do with the coaching situation, like Dan Hurley is reportedly about to get a bag from the Lakers to be their next head coach. And I feel like these are 3 guys that Dan Hurley would want to have on his team for sure. Like, they all give you shooting and spacing. They're all like veteran guys that are trying to win now. It's not like the Lakers are messing around with any young talent that isn't ready. But looking at this, I think this is a home run hit for Lakers fans everywhere. I think it just makes sense. And then if you're the Brooklyn Nets, you're getting a young piece in Jalen Hood-Schifino. Still has 3 years left on his contract. Jared Vanderbilt still relatively young. You get 4 years left on his contract. D'Angelo Russell, you have him for the rest of the year. Christian Wood fits whether they want to just another big in the rotation. And then you're getting the 17th overall pick, and you don't have a single draft pick in this draft. And then with this 2029 first round pick from the Lakers, we've shown how valuable those picks can be in the later 2020s that can show value, a ton of value, especially from the Lakers, who don't know what they're going to be at that current time. So next team, we're going to go on to the Western Conference. Pelicans. Interesting situation for them. I have them trading with the Atlanta Hawks. I think they're going to cash in their chips, trade a Brandon Ingram and their 21st overall pick for DeJounte Murray, Clint Capella. That's the trade, really simple. I like Atlanta's chances better than especially if the Pelicans don't want to extend Brandon Ingram. I think the Hawks would like to pair Brandon Ingram and Trae Young up together. I feel like it fits better than having another backcourt mate in DeJounte Murray. Clint Capella, who is somebody that is seemingly waiting to get out of the door in Atlanta. You give him a new fit next to a Zion Williamson, more of an athletic big, and you're giving DeJounte Murray next to a CJ McCollum and a Zion Williamson and a Trey Murphy and Herb Jones and everything that got going on over there. I have them including this first-round pick because of the risk the Hawks are taking. DeJounte Murray still has 4 years left on his contract compared to 1 year for Brandon Ingram, and they're going to have to extend him if they want to keep him. But you're adding that 21st overall pick to the trade because, like, if you're adding DeJounte and Clint Capella to, like, this Pelicans team that is already super, super deep and young, like, Jordan Hawkins is somebody who is very, very good, a very good shooter, and he wasn't even cracking the rotation when this team was fully healthy. So with the Hawks, they're better suited to take on that first-round pick because that first-round pick doesn't really mean too much for the Pelicans because he wouldn't even crack the rotation, in my opinion, for them. And you give the Hawks now the first pick, Alex Sarr, you're giving him 21st pick, Trae Young, Brandon Ingram, feel like just better fitting pieces for Atlanta. And the Pelicans, if you're the Pelicans, you're adding DeJounte Murray. So you're having DeJounte, CJ, Herb Jones, Zion, Clint Capella, Trey Murphy, Jordan Hawkins, Jose Alvarado off your bench. Like, you probably add some more big man depth in there as well in free agency. But I feel like this is putting the Pelicans in a great direction moving forward with better fitting pieces around Zion Williamson. Next team, Phoenix Suns. This is kind of having what I had the Wizards do in the same trade, but I have the Phoenix Suns getting a little bit more. So in this trade, I have the Suns getting Tyus Jones in a sign-in trade. I have also Corey Kispert going to the Suns to give them more spacing and shooting. Have Nasir Little, Eric Gordon, for the 22nd overall pick, which is well known on the market. So that's the trade, pretty simple right there. The Washington Wizards are getting Nasir Little, Eric Gordon, and the 22nd overall pick for Tyus Jones and Corey Kispert, two guys that right now help out the Suns in everything they need. Suns need a point guard. Tyus Jones, one of the best backup point guards in the league, and he could easily start next to this talented team. And Corey Kispert gives them off-the-bench spacing that I feel like Nasir Little didn't really provide them with. So I think there's just two better fitting pieces for both sides. And Eric Gordon, obviously on the last year of that deal, is only $3.3 million. Gives the Washington Wizards 3 first-round picks, 2, 22, and 26. And then the Suns gear their team up to try to kind of redeem themselves from this past year's playoffs. Next I have... it's going to be the Clippers. It was going to be Dallas, but I'm not doing one for Dallas. So the Clippers... this is an interesting one because they're not committing to extending Paul George. It makes me think he's going to get traded. If they didn't do it by now, it really makes me think he's going to get traded. So I'm interested to see where they go with this. Because this was a hard trade to really digest at his age. And with what team I think could really give him an extension. It's interesting. So looking at this, have them trading with the Cleveland Cavaliers. When I'm looking at the Clippers, James Harden's a free agent. I haven't heard anything about them bringing him back at all. So they could be in the market for a point guard. And they just need to get younger, youthful more. So look at this trade. I have Paul George going to the Cleveland Cavaliers, along with Norman Powell and Zubac, for Darius Garland, who can be the franchise point guard for the Clippers going forward. Still super young, only 24 years old, 4 years left on that contract, and kind of just give you reason not to bring back a James Harden. Jared Allen to replace Zubac, who is better than Zubac in my opinion at this point. And Karis LeVert to kind of replace those Norman Powell minutes. And if you're the Clippers, you're getting the 20th overall pick. So, from the Clippers' point of view, I think this is a phenomenal trade. It gets you younger. It gets you something to look forward to post this Kawhi Leonard, Paul George era. You're going into a new arena. You're adding a duo of Darius Garland and Jared Allen. You're adding Karis LeVert that can give you kind of that bench production that Norman Powell was giving you. You're adding draft capital with the 20th overall pick for Paul George, which it doesn't even seem like you want to extend him There's teams that are going to be in the market for somebody like Paul George to pair up with a star that they already have, and Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. You're adding Norman Powell for the Cavs, who kind of can give them that secondary scoring option off the bench or in the starting lineup. Zubac can kind of be that big that you can feel more comfortable if you have Zubac coming off your bench compared to starting next to a Mobley, depending on how they want to figure that whole situation out in that front court. Looking at this from the Cavs perspective, I think this is a great trade for them. You're kind of getting a better fitting team around Donovan Mitchell, pairing him up with Paul George. You have Evan Mobley, Norman Powell for scoring. Zubac is a great big to have just in the rotation in general. For the Clippers, Darius Garland, point guard of the future, so you don't really have to worry about bringing back a James Harden. Jared Allen can be also your big of the future, pairing them up with a Kawhi Leonard, giving this whole team a different look. Karis LeVert also for the last of the year, his contract and the 20th overall pick, to where I really think you could really add anything to this Clippers team. Maybe you want some more big man depth because you have Mason Plumlee. Maybe Khalil Ware is there for the Clippers. I think he could be a good fit for them and what they want to do. So I think this is just a trade to really get the Clippers a new look and kind of also build for their future. And for the Cavs, I mean, you're pairing up Donovan Mitchell and Paul George. I mean, you're going to have to extend both, but if you do, I mean, that's a great 1-2 punch to have in the Eastern Conference. Next trade, Minnesota Timberwolves. This is kind of the same. This is the same trade I had for the Eastern Conference video. I think it just makes sense. DeJounte Murray, Bogdanovich for Karl-Anthony Towns. Wolves give up 27. This is kind of what I'm just same trade I had in the Eastern Conference. I just think it makes too much sense for both sides. DeJounte pairing him up with Anthony Edwards in that backcourt, moving Mike Conley to the bench. Naz Reid to the starting lineup. Bogdanovich is going to be your new sixth man. With Naz Reid going into the starting lineup, you're adding Karl-Anthony Towns and Alex Sarr with the Atlanta Hawks drafting that new front court. So looking at that, I think Cat plays a lot better off of Trae Young than DeJounte does. And I think Cat offensively and Trae Young offensively in that pick and roll can be dominant with an Alex Sarr who has crazy potential and upside defensively. And I think I've seen enough from Karl-Anthony Towns defensively this playoff run to make me not worry about the defense as much as I did before. And you're adding the 27th overall pick, which I really like them getting like Keyshawn George to kind of give them some upside off that bench. But I just feel like this is two teams that are getting better fitting pieces. I think DeJounte and Anthony Edwards fit perfectly. I think they need another real perimeter shot creator that can do a little bit of everything, especially defensively, next to an Anthony Edwards. So you're running DeJounte, Ant-Man, McDaniels, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley, Bogdanovich, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They're going to need to address that big man spot. They have a second-round pick, but I think Luka Garza is ready to get some real NBA rotational minutes. But I think this trade makes sense for both sides here. Next team I have is Denver Nuggets. This is another interesting one. But I think they're flirting with that second apron. I think they don't really have a lot of avenues to get better other than trading Michael Porter Jr. And I think this team kind of needs a little bit more than what Michael Porter Jr. can provide. You have to extend Jamal Murray. You have to extend Eric Gordon here coming up. KCP, you're probably going to lose because he might want to go get paid one last time. But if he takes that player option, that's a plus for you. But looking at this, have them trading with the Wizards. I have you getting Kyle Kuzma, right? Tyus Jones. That would obviously be part of like a sign and trade. Corey Kispert and Marvin Bagley for Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, 28, 57. That's what I have the Nuggets doing. So, from the Nuggets, you're bringing in Kyle Kuzma, who at this point I think is just a better all-around player than Michael Porter Jr. He gives you better rebounding, better facilitating. I just think he does everything besides just purely shooting the ball better than Michael Porter Jr. About the same size. He can do a lot more for you, especially offensively. Gives you kind of another shot creator so that can play next to a Jokic and next to a Jamal Murray. You're getting Tyus Jones, who can be a better version of Reggie Jackson, who's getting up there in age. Obviously, you can probably sign him to pretty good contract. He's coming off of a down year, and he's going to be back to that backup guard role. And I think he can easily fit in the pick and roll next to Jokic when you don't have Jamal Murray in the lineup. Marvin Bagley, kind of you're lacking at that backup big position. Zeke Naji hasn't really worked out. Maybe you can put more faith into Marvin Bagley, who has shown more. And I feel like next to backing up Nikola Jokic could be better than a Zeke Naji. Corey Kispert gives them real shooting off the bench, is something that they don't have. They don't have really any kind of shooting coming off that bench of Denver. And this is also mixing in, I have them giving up their first round pick, but the Denver's not really playing any of their guys anyways. Especially that they draft. These 4 guys are all rotational guys right here that they're adding. You're giving away Michael Porter Jr., who's still young, to that you compare with a Wizards team. I like him next to a Denny and a Bilal going forward. They have now 3 first-round picks in this. If they did this trade, 2, 26 and 28 now that they can build for the future. I think Michael Porter Jr. can give them the necessary spacing that they need to kind of build out the best version of Bilal and Denny, and for their guys that they have coming in. So looking at this, that 28th overall pick is not valuable for Denver because they're not looking to play any of their guys that they draft anyways. And at that position in the draft, I don't think there's anybody that fits what Denver wants to do, really. So looking at that, I feel like you might as well move the pick and your second because you're not really you have 2 young guys off your bench. You still have Peyton Watson that you really haven't played. Christian Braun is the only rookie young guy that you've cracked to your rotation. So with that, this gives you starting lineup of Jamal Murray. You're going to have to figure out that 2 spot. I think you could live with Christian Braun, depending on what happens with KCP, with Christian Braun being that 2. I've seen the development from him this playoffs. Still super young, but he has grown his three-point ability enough to where, if he started next year, I wouldn't be okay, this is going to be the downfall of the Denver Nuggets, right? So you have Jamal Murray, Christian Braun, Kyle Kuzma, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, and off your bench now you have Tyus Jones, Corey Kispert, Marvin Bagley, Peyton Watson. Hopefully Julian Strawther can find his way into the rotation, but it gives them more versatility, I feel like, with Kyle Kuzma over Michael Porter Jr., Tyus Jones off the bench has their point guard, Corey Kispert off the bench as well, giving them shooting, and Marvin Bagley is just going to be a better backup, in my opinion, at this point than a Zeke Naji, who could possibly go to Washington and really carve out a nice little role there, because he's still super young and he's on a 4-year contract. So for my audio listeners, I have Denver Nuggets getting Kyle Kuzma, Tyus Jones, Corey Kispert, Marvin Bagley. For Michael Porter, Zeke Naji, 28th overall pick in this year's draft and the 57th pick in this year's draft. For the Washington Wizards to have 5 picks in this draft, which I kind of feel like they need. So now, last team, Oklahoma City Thunder. Always a fun team to trade with. Have them getting in contact with the Toronto Raptors. This is looking at them adding some depth of that wing position and a big that kind of is ready now. I feel like they need a big that's kind of opposite of Chet Holmgren. I feel like they need somebody that is more, not back down in the post. I don't know what I'm trying to, just somebody who's not the same as Chet, if that makes sense. So I have them getting Bruce Brown, Jakob Poeltl for Josh Giddey, Kenrich Williams, 12th overall pick, and then this first from the 76ers, 1 through 6 protected. So when I'm looking at this trade from the Toronto Raptors point of view, you're adding Josh Giddey, who I feel like can really fit on this team, being the lead guard and having Quickly more so play the 2 and play off of Josh Giddey. And I feel like I feel like Quickly is just more of a 2. That's just my personal opinion. I think Quickly is phenomenal, more so off the ball, and you give Josh Giddey all the playmaking responsibilities, and you let Scotty Barnes focus on his offense, RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly also focus on their offense. I feel like he can be a nice fitting piece to what the Toronto Raptors are building towards. They're picking up the 12th overall pick, and I really like them taking a big and Khalil Ware to kind of replace Jakob Poeltl. I think he can be an athletic big with floor spacing ability to kind of really fit with this Toronto team. Have them getting Bruce Brown and Jakob Poeltl for the Thunder, and the Toronto Raptors are getting a 2025 first-round pick For the Thunder, you're getting Bruce Brown, who can fit seamlessly into your rotation, kind of giving you another point of attack defender and kind of just do it all guy off your bench, kind of what Gordon Hayward was supposed to be for you. And Jakob Poeltl, who can be that center next to a Chet Holmgren to be like a 10-10 guy next to a Chet Holmgren is what this team desperately needs. Especially they just need more size on the interior. I think Jakob Poeltl does that. And Bruce Brown just gives you a little bit of everything coming off that bench. And with how OKC plays, I feel like he can give them play him at the 3 and the 4 almost at times with what OKC does. So looking at this, I think this trade works out for both sides. I think the Raptors kind of get a young point guard that they could look to kind of fit with what they got going on already. You're adding the 12th overall pick, and I think they have the 19th, I want to say. 19th overall pick as well, and the 31st. You're adding them another first-round pick in 2025 for two guys that don't fit your timeline anymore. I feel like this is getting good value for them. And if you're the Thunder, you're getting two guys that can help you win right now. But I think this is going to be an interesting offseason in terms of trades and what goes down. We have the finals that start today, but at this point when I'm recording this. Then you have the draft, which is a weird 2 days. And then you have a couple days after that is free agency. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of trades on draft night, and I feel like there's going to be a lot of trades this offseason, a lot of player movement, because I feel like the league is the most competitive it's ever been. I feel like every team, you could argue in the Western Conference, there's almost next year 13 different teams that could realistically be in the play-in/playoffs. And then in the East, I feel like it's more so top-heavy, but I feel like it is getting better towards the bottom half. But that's all I have for this episode. Let's talk about it, wrapping up this kind of two-part episode of one trade idea for every team going into this offseason. Hope to see you tune in to future episodes.